8:03, it's the Mike Missanelli Show. I am Mike Missanelli here with Bill and Ray. And the Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey situation has blown up here in Philadelphia to the point where we don't know where it's going to go from here. The notion is that maybe Joel looks in the mirror and sees this and starts to play again, but who knows? But let's bring in a man who's been covering the league for a lot of years, senior NBA writer for The Athletic. And I got to tell you, the NBA is a great beat for a journalist because it is always filled with drama. Sam Amick joins us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Hello, Sam.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
All right, Sam, what can you add with your reporting? Now, this is originally reported by ESPN, but you've covered the league for a long time. Is there anything you can add to this story that there was a team meeting and somehow Maxey called out Embiid?
Well, I mean, the first question that crossed my mind once we heard about the meeting and more of the details was that, this has gotten bad enough when you talk about 211 and all the discourse, or discord rather, internally, that you got to start wondering about change within the organization. And so, my interest and my focus had been trying to get clarity on the question of, is there any chance that Nick Nurse is on the hot seat, or even Daryl Morey in the front office, just because ownership groups in general, especially when they come into a season with the kind of title contending expectations that this group had, owners can be volatile sorts. I was told, and listen, this league is crazy, things can change, but I was told that there's no internal discussion about those kinds of changes at this point, and the focus is on everything that everybody's talking about in the locker room, and the big fellas, kind of what is now a bit more of an exposed or revealed habit of just not being as much of a pro as some of his teammates and folks in the organization would like him to be. And the relationship with him and Tyrese Maxey, which, to their credit, it really does sound legitimate that, that Tyrese at 24 has the cachet and the trust with Joel that we can deliver this kind of a message and they can still be fine, which we were definitely told they are. But, we obviously learned a couple things about the dynamics in the past couple days.
Sam, let me ask you this question. What is the perception around the league of Joel Embiid at this point?
For me, it's kind of just the basics. Just a wonderfully talented, skilled, big man, two-way force, and a guy who that qualifier, that asterisk of when he's healthy, when he's on the court, as good as anybody. But you would hear over the past couple of years questions about work ethic, and then I'll just be honest with you guys, it's always hard for me. I'm very, very reticent in general to, we're not behind the curtain with these teams. Trainers are not leaking stuff ever about the athletes, so we don't always have clarity on, okay, if he looks a little heavy, is it habits or is it health? And so that being said, you definitely would run into folks who had worked with Joel and knew him very well on a daily basis, who would say, he just got to find a way to get to another level from a training preparation standpoint and a different mentality. And, obviously that kind of bears out now, where it's one thing when we say it, excuse me, in the media, or when people say it, on the side and in the shadows. It's just a whole other thing when it's a conversation in the locker room that ends up getting revealed. And I tell you, this was on my mind the other day, the whole other drama about the Marcus Hayes column and everything that happened with Joel and in the locker room with him. I find it ironic that if you take out what I think was kind of a tasteless framing of that column and the family stuff, it was too far. The messaging is the same, right? It's just criticism of the way you approach your job. And right now, it does feel like that moment where Joel's going to have to just look in the mirror.
Yeah, you know what? We were talking about the other day, even though that first paragraph was harsh and they changed it. It's kind of leading into the issue of what we're talking about now. So let me ask you about the leak itself, because you've been at this for a really long time. You get information from various different sources. My theory is that the Sixers are not unhappy that this got out. Because you cover a league where the players rule, and you can't brush up against players for fear of losing them. So this gets out, and this is like, okay, we don't have to be the bad guy here. He becomes the bad guy nationally because one of his more respected younger teammates, who's actually close to him, is the one that said it.
No, I mean, that's fair. But I would add to that by saying that what I find so interesting here, and that I think so far is getting missed a little bit, is that, Tyrese it's one thing for us to learn that Tyrese said a few things behind closed doors. In my experience, when that kind of thing gets reported about a young player, even if it's accurate, that young player typically will get uncomfortable being in the spotlight and probably push back against the media, maybe not talk at all, or maybe deny things that went on. That's, I think, the norm. So when Tyrese yesterday decided to step in front of the microphone and on the record basically own the moment, I actually thought it was another revealing moment when it comes to this team, when it comes to leadership, because you add a guy like Paul George to the mix, whose resume is head and shoulders above Tyrese's at this point, obviously mostly because of age, but Paul is an all-time player. I thought it felt like to me that a little bit of this here is like Tyrese is very comfortable letting people know that he's got a real voice in that locker room, and that, Paul, we're happy to have you here and you're incredible. But, Joe and I have been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah. So what do you think happens here? We're talking to Sam Amick, who covers the NBA for The Athletic, has covered the NBA for a lot of years. What do you think is the byproduct of this thing? Where does this go from here?
It's just the elephant in the room, not to steal a phrase that was used in this reporting, but, it's just the health. That's it. I mean, they look completely dead in the water without some sort of miraculous, health turnaround here, because for all the drama, all the emotions, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, the game is the game, and they're not going to win games without getting their big three back on the court. So I don't know where they go. I mean, to the Nick Nurse question, and we had heard the same as well. There's some reporting that, okay, Joel at times is expressing a lack of clarification or a frustration with how he's occasionally used. Okay, fine, but we're getting nitpicky here. Joe's not himself. He's not looked good when he's been out there. Paul is still kind of working his way back in after that long absence, and then you got Tyrese out. So the only saving grace for them, and it's already getting near closing time, I think, but the East being as mediocre as it has been, once you get past the top two teams, is the only thing kind of giving them hope. There really is a pathway here where if they can get healthy, rattle off a 5-7 game winning streak, then you'll be back in business.
Does he look like a guy whose desire has waned? You've been around a lot of players. You've seen players react. He's now 30 years old. He didn't really feel the need to be in tip-top shape to start this season. He relied on the narrative that only the playoffs are important. So is that a guy whose desire has waned, or who's just biding time until he has to be serious?
I hesitate to play armchair psychologist, but body language doesn't look great, obviously. I was with Team USA in France, and I was around all the teams at the Olympics, and I would also add into that I found myself, almost feeling bad for Joel during that time, and just the negativity around him. Only he knows how much, if at all, that impacted, his experience and his state of mind. But he was like one of the least joyful people. And not that he was professional, he was fine to deal with. I'm not trying to say he was fine media-wise, but he did not seem to be enjoying himself all that much during his time over there. And obviously he was getting booed left and right because of the choice to not play for the French team. So I don't know. Maybe, it's years upon years of setbacks physically, and then you got negativity when you're trying to just go win a gold medal in the Olympics. Maybe some of that is bleeding over into his state of mind now, but it's a very, very confusing, mysterious situation for me when you talk about the knee and just the things that don't add up. Like, if the knee was this tenuous, then why was he playing? Because, the knee was an issue back then. And then if he was able to literally go to every practice and every shoot-around and take part in every single activity with Team USA, then why did that suddenly shift? I mean, I do feel like there was, some kind of setback along the way. It seemed pretty clear. But to your question about Joel, it's, I hope he can flip it in a positive direction, because at this point he's on this track to being one of those, kind of tragic NBA characters that was never able to maximize his potential.
So, wow. At this point, we need to consider whether he is actually bored with basketball. That's not what I'm saying. I just think and I haven't lived it, I can't relate. I think, and this is, the attempt at empathy, is that when you can't do the thing that you want to do at the level you want to do it for an extended period of time, then whether that inspires boredom or apathy or just like a frustration, whatever adjective you want to put on it, he's clearly struggling physically and maybe mentally to get it where he wants it to go, and it's tough to watch. Sam, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your insight, and we'll talk up the road. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Be good.
That's Sam Amick, who covers the NBA for The Athletic. Very guarded.